Step number one for any project, of course, is clearing out your workspace. As you can see, boy number 2, aka Junior, has multiple ongoing projects. Okay, that's more like it. I'm ready to go. Opening the box, I am greeted by a quick start guide for the impatient with instructions to download and read the detailed assembly instructions, which I have done. And those instructions include an initial request to go through the box and make sure that all the parts are included, which I have done. And the instructions also include a nice selection of pictures to identify the parts or help you do so. They also include the admonition to use solder with lead, which I am doing. And because of that, I am extra careful to be in a well-ventilated workspace. Additionally, I am working on a retired cutting board, and it will no longer be used for food so that nobody gets lead poisoning with their salad in the future. Step number 1 is to install the 4 phone jacks. There are 3 different types, and we are told that it's easy to figure out which go where, and I found that that's true. So we can insert them without much difficulty. Truth be told, I'm not a great solderer, as you'll see, but I did watch a YouTube video about how to do it. The next step is the trimmer resistor, and I found that the fit was helped by straightening the pins at first. Then they inserted into the board without too much difficulty. Then it helped me to bend them again, to hold them in place, to solder. There we go. Now it won't fall out too badly. Let's do it a little more. There we go. Now I'm ready to solder. All right, now we have the trimmer resistor in, and that's a good view of my somewhat goofy soldering job. And now we have the on-off slider switch, which goes in here. All right, and to help it to not fall out while I solder it, I'm going to prop it like that on my pickups. Okay, now we have our switch on. Soldering job looking a little more even. Now we have the rotary encoder that fits into the board where it conveniently says encoder. So we'll put that in like so. Now with the rotary encoder successfully soldered in place, we'll move on to the push button switch, which looks like the pins might be in a square, but they're not. They're in an ever so subtle rectangle. So we have to line them up. See, it looks like they'll fit in that direction, but not quite in that direction. So we'll do that. The instructions did indicate to put the rotary encoder on first, but I'm noting now that that's a little taller than the push button switch. So when I flip it over to solder, the switch is floating in air. So I have tried to prop it up on the pickups a little bit. That might work, but it's not perfect. So I'm going to try to bend the pins a little bit as I did with the other, with the trimmer, to see if that helps hold it flush while I turn it upside down. This might be a little annoying. Yeah, I'm not sure that did me any good, really. So now I'm flipping it upside down. Here, and the edge of the pickup is giving me a little height, keeping the switch flush against the board. I think that'll do it. I'm happy to report that that worked, and it's on flush. So we're finished with the PCB for now, and we are going to leave the on-off switch in the off position as we are instructed in the instructions for now. So we're going to set that aside, and we will pull out now the Heltec module. It looks like we're going to get to put our soldering iron away for a little while and move into the advanced Lego section. And here is our Heltec module embedded in some styrofoam. We've got some various wire connectors in the box. Also, with the Heltec module, we're going to start with the 1.25 millimeter JST connector, which is right here, and this plugs into the underside of the Heltec, and I am going to keep using the styrofoam as a soft stabilizer. We are reminded to keep the red lined up with the positive polarity, and I'm going to use my pickups here. Plug them in. There is a satisfying last little snap that occurred off screen just a minute ago, and so I know it's well seated now. The next step involves snapping this 18-pin header onto the Heltec module. We're advised to be careful about putting pressure on the top of the module here. So I'm keeping it in the styrofoam, and not quite sure how much force is okay to apply here. It's making me a little nervous. Well, that is not easy at all. Although it does seem to be going on that end. I don't want to put pressure on that screen. Well, making some progress, but we still have some daylight showing through there. All right, I abandoned that strategy and I adopted another one, which is to hold it carefully on the edges here and almost zipper it on. A little pressure there, little pressure there, pressure there. There we go. Zipper, zipper. There we go. And just gentle back and forth until it's on flush. There we go. The next step is to insert the Heltec module into the PCB with the USB port on the outside. And this seems like it should be simple, but these 36 little pins are proving to be the bane of my existence, in part because I'm noting that there's ever so slightly, not at 90 degrees here, but toeing in just a little bit. And I don't want to break anything by applying a distracting pressure here. Okay, so after a lot of futzing, I did decide to apply very gentle distracting pressure along here. It was very gentle, and I didn't breathe at all while I was doing it, because I was very nervous about breaking this thing. And it turned out to work. So now it fits very nicely on there. And now we're going to solder for a long time because there are a lot of little pins there. All right, that did not turn out half bad. So now we're instructed to take the wires from the 1.25 millimeter JST connector and thread them through these little holes, which are strain reducers, and then back out through the board like so. They seem awfully long though, so I'm going to shorten them. So this looks like a decent amount. Hope I don't regret it. I'm going to use my favorite gizmo here. Oh, it's too small. So I'm going to have to do it by hand. All right, rescued by an X-Acto knife. I have successfully now shortened the wires and soldered them in place. So cleaning off the workspace at the start, amongst all the projects, I did find this battery that didn't seem to be doing anything else. So I'm not sure if it works, but I will use it for now at least. But I do like the idea, somebody's home, very exciting. I do like the idea of having the battery live under the Heltec module. Seems very tidy. And the instructions do make a to-do about how you thread the wires depending on whether you're going to put the battery under the Heltec or whether you're going to put the battery under the whole PCB board. And so I was experimenting, and I don't think that you have to commit. So with the wires threaded here, I think I can reach to have a battery live under the Heltec, or I could have the battery reach to live under the PCB. So I think that's how I'm going to go for now, and I think that that is about the length I'm going to use. So I am going to cut some here, shorten it up. Woohoo! All right, and I will tin the wire. Maybe, there we go. There we go. All right, so I threaded the wires down through the PCB, around and back up through the connectors slots, and soldered them in place. Now we've come to the loudspeaker, which goes on the board last because it's so tall. that on and get ready to solder that in place. Now we're going to check for short circuits using an ohm meter. And indeed, it's about 8 mega ohms there. And similarly, 8 mega ohms there. So we are good. Now for the protective case that comes with so-called foils that turn out to be a little bit of an IQ test to figure out how to get it started, but you can peel that off. Where we're not doing so good right now is that I failed to take a careful look at the Molex connector and notice that it is not compatible with the battery that I pulled, that I have access to today, so we are not going to use that. Instead, we are going to use this external battery pack and a micro USB connector in here. I'm going to plug that in, and woohoo! Turns on. That's very exciting. What's a little confusing to me though is the power switch over here is off, on, off. Doesn't seem to make a difference, so I'm not quite sure what to make of that yet. Next, we're going to start assembling the case, and we're going to use these 15mm standoff bolts that are going to emanate from the underside of the four corners here, and we're going to screw them on with these little screws. So that went pretty easily, looks good. Now we are going to install the antenna connector. There we go for now. So now we are going to take the tiny IPX coax connector and plug it into the socket on the Heltec module. Like so. Now, depending on where we're going to put our battery, whether we're going to slip it under the Heltec module or whether we're going to slip it under the PCB, may affect which standoff bolt here we choose to use. Since I want to keep my options open, I'm going to use the longer one. So we're going to flip the top on over this here. Oh, that was the little spring antenna there. I'm going to flip this over gently. And I'm going to start screwing these in. With all of those attached now, put the back plate on. Now that the bottom plate is well attached, put the rubber feet on. It's time for the knobs, and I just want you to notice in here that there is a flat side to the black knob. There you go. That's going to correspond with the flat side here. Realizing that should make it easier to put on, although yep, looks like it's on. Terrific. So that's on. And now let's get the red knob. And that's got a square peg and a square peg. Woohoo! And now the paddles. These are the same right and left. There's no directionality for these, fortunately, so you can't do it wrong. And I have taken off the yellow tapes that cover. And there is one. And there is the other. All right. So the unit is finished, and I read the instructions that clarified that this on-off switch is only when the unit is being used with the LiPo battery or charging the LiPo battery. So when we use the unit plugged in with a power source from the USB port, it's going to bypass that switch and that won't be relevant. So here we are fired up. Nice. Now we're going to try it out. See how we do. Nice. Let's try another one. Sweet! The whole reason why I built this was for portability. Well, and because it just is super cool. So it didn't seem right to finish this video without showing that feature. I took the paddles off and put them in this little bubble wrap bag that came with the kit. Parts came in that. So I'll put the external battery down there. And, oh, I ended up shortening the bottom so that it would fit in this little Pelican box better. And there we go. All set, friends.